Greetings, meatbags. This is the ISO. So, we are 8 days into the release of the December alpha test for the Vanguard, and I wanted to do a review for the update. The alpha test is still going on. If you're interested, it'll still be going on until the 9th. I am here in the Galente Captain's Quarters, thanks to Macintosh for this. Suit and environment are both by him, and wow, this is kind of crazy. I didn't think I'd be back in dust in quite a literal way like this. But anyways, so I'll break this video into 2 parts because the game has 2 modes and I should do one for each. A lot of this is going to be kind of my impression, opinions that I have, and a bit of just analysis of the game. I do want to break it down pretty good. I might leave out some details. Let me know if you have any things that you had either a gripe or thought was a cool addition to this test in the comments below. So anyways, I'll start with the mode that I've been waiting 10 years for, the rebirth of Dust 514. This is called Havoc. It's a 9v9 lobby-esque shooter that you walk around and capture 3 cannon points on the map. And when you capture the point, the cannon points towards the enemy MCC and starts to shoot. The round ends when the opposing team's MCC is destroyed. That's the ship above. And you can tell by looking up and seeing the percentages left on the ship. There's no ambient damage between ships, so you can just not capture points between teams and no damage is done to either MCC. So a match can just linger there and it gives time for the teams to loot the battlefield. And yes, you heard me right. There is looting in this lobby shooter now. Not only can you loot enemies, but you can also loot item boxes littered across the map. So the bones of Dust 514 are here, but the looting is a whole new thing. Back in the day with Dust, you had this thing that popped up at the end with the kill screen. At the bottom, it would show you what you looted from the map. There was an assumption that the character was going out and pulling items off the bodies of the enemy. And there was money at play because you were being paid by the faction to complete a mercenary contract. But also, some of the variance in how much you were paid that can also be attributed to selling salvage or something like that after taking stuff off the battlefield. So this kind of fills in the blank from that game. So with Vanguard, what's interesting part about the loot is that it doesn't go into anyone's pocket until the end of the match. Whatever was on your clone when you died is dropped in your body at your corpse, or if you're extracted with it, then it goes in your inventory. That right there is an interesting dynamic you have with your enemies, but also your allies. Everyone is fighting over a resource on the battlefield, and not just trying to win the match to get the payment at the end. But you also may be competing or coordinating loot between your allies too, so you want to sandbag it on someone, and then defend them like they're a high priority VIP kind of thing. As it sits right now, the value's kind of low. That might just be a test thing just to see how it plays out, but I'm pretty sure that can be balanced in the future. I'd like to see where this goes in the next update. There's some issues with this mode. I gotta bring up the most important bit, is that there's a population issue. Maybe it's advertising, maybe it's something else, but it is an alpha. Yeah, I get it. There's room to improve on this, especially if it hits a mass market and it's free to play. But the main thing is that me and my friends have sat in the queue for upwards of 5, sometimes 10 minutes, and we get into the match, and there's only one enemy on the enemy team, or nobody. Why did the match even start? And usually it's right at the beginning. So it's like the population's so low that it just throws anyone who's going into queue into the battle, no matter what skill level they are. So you end up with situations where you're completely outclassing the person you're opposing, and it just becomes a lobby that you're walking around in and looting. It's cool free loot, but it's kind of not fun when no one's fighting over it, or it's not a strong enough fight. Steamrolling is no fun, but that can be improved in future updates. There is one other thing that I noticed that kind of adds to this. Okay, so you have someone that has skill and someone who knows the mechanics. There is full tracking for all characters in the map. So when you open the map, you can see where the enemy dots are on the map, and also your allies. And it feels like it kind of gives an unfair advantage to someone who knows what this mechanic is. So that might just be a way to test out stuff like equipment, like scanners or something like that. I could see that's what it would look like, but yeah, it looks like that might be either broken or just hasn't been properly implemented, but it is super early. We're getting the first tastes of what that could be. So all that being said, I haven't really described what I think about the mode necessarily. I've just kind of given an overview of the game. Very much Dust 514 in some form, existing inside of the EVE Vanguard ecosystem. I have a bunch of opinions about the alpha so far, and some good, mostly good, and some bad. I understand that, yes, this is an alpha. I keep repeating that. I know, I'm sorry. But it's important to kind of get that across, because when you make a criticism of a test, people just scream off the top of their lungs, it's an alpha, it's a beta. It's like, that's kind of missing the point of trying to make something critical, is asking where is the thing that makes this game a game. And, you know, that's good to have for development, because it gauges the interest of the audience, even if it's a small audience, for the developer. So if they don't know what we want, they're going to make whatever, they're just going to throw something at the wall and not know what we want. So this is an important part of an alpha, is to give out your feedback that is, it doesn't have to be constructive. It can be critical in a way that is like, what game do we want? Yes, the game mechanics are there, but like, if they're not going to tell us what the game is, we're going to tell them what the game is. And some of us want Dust, some of us want the base mode, the Tarkov-like shooter, but there's little guidance from CCP. So myself and others who are reviewing it, like Pyrex, we're kind of like nudging, I think, just a little bit. We're just nudging just a little bit to go into the direction that we want the game to go. And so far as I can tell, EVE Online is not safe, and Vanguard is kind of one of those products to try and compete with the likes of Star Citizen. Other less interesting space games, Elite Dangerous. I'm afraid that this product is not getting the right amount of attention. It needs to stay off the chopping block. And this has happened with multiple CCP products, and it worries me just a little bit. I've heard from other people that this game's kind of sucks. Like, I don't necessarily agree that it sucks. Like, in general, I think that it's a good product. It's just, it needs some guidance, that's all. So I think with this 9v9 thing, I think it is another attempt to throw something in the wall to try to get interest spurred from the core audience, which is Dust 514 vets, right? And I think that this mode is fantastic. It just needs people to engage with it. It needs to have more than just 2v1, 1v1, 2v2. It needs to be the 9v9 that it purports to be. And considering the issues, it really sucks now. When the test first started, there was a pretty good amount of people playing this mode, and I was getting some 4v4 in there, and that was amazing. Like, go check out one of my streams. There was a decent amount of people in those matches, and the gunfights were pretty intense.
Oh, they're up there too. Oh, they surrounded me. That was like 4 different directions. Yeesh. Alright, let me see what's going on here.
It felt like Dust again. So if we can get that again, or maybe I'm just getting on the wrong times and I just don't see anybody. That could be it. The gunplay and the map was top notch, and I feel like this was a spiritual successor to what Dust was supposed to be, but was held back in the day by hardware. And I'm imagining this mode combined with other modes to make something that resembles the EVE Forever vision, that video series, and the stuff at FanFest that they did back in 2013, 2014, when Dust was still a thing. Where you have a game on every scale in EVE, from ships to humans fighting on planets, and affecting EVE players not just in direct ways, like the combat ways, but also in the financial ways. And maybe even someday you'll fight on a station interior or on a deck of a ship. Star Citizen has been doing this from the ground up, and it's taken them $1 billion and 10 years to do it. But EVE is unique in its scale, mainly because ships are really big, and then there's the human size scale. They're really siloed. So even a frigate is among some of the biggest ships in Star Citizen. And this mode has a lot more potential than the Tarkov-like mode that we've grown accustomed to in these tests. I think it just needs a bit more refinement, and it can be added to the ecosystem of Vanguard. And I'm glad Dust is back, but it does need more than just Dust. So that's why the Tarkov mode exists, to have that true EVE-like experience. And now I'm going to review that specific mode, the Tarkov-like. And yes, this is closer to Eve, like I said, more than the 9v9 shooter. And a lot of what was in the previous tests is still here in this update. Just a bit more refined, more polished, and it does feel just as good as it did before. It's really starting to become a unique new thing that kind of differentiates itself a bit from just any Tarkov clone. Yes, there are a lot of the basics still here. Deploy down to the planet by yourself or with up to 2 other friends. Run around the map, kill NPCs and players while looting. Take on missions, and tactically move across the map. A big part of these modes is sound and hearing, where gunfire is coming from and where footsteps are coming up on you. That just reeks of Tarkov. But there are a couple things that keep it unique, mainly that you can be extracted from anywhere on the map. That was kind of funny.
I got shot a few times.
Yep.
That was more than one bullet.
Ow. That was almost all my shield.
That was a headshot, 1 bullet.
Okay. So 2 shots to the head is gonna basically three shots is gonna kill the head. Alright.
I mean, we don't know until we test it.
Alright. And we got the same number of Vanguard kills. Nice.
Yeah.
Was kind of one of the selling points. And that's been there since the earliest tests. Mining is one of the things I think is gonna make this feel like an MMO. It is unique to this game as far as I can tell. You have quite a bit more refinement here too. One of the things is that the model for the laser miner is actually finished, so it is a complete-ish looking device, which is good. But you also have these mining nodes that you need to switch between the different laser modules to get at, and then extract the whole node out of the ground, which is pretty cool. I saw something similar to that in Star Citizen, but nothing like, okay, you need to put on this specific laser to get this type of crystal out of the mining node. It's really cool. And the mini game is nice. Yes, okay, the nodes are not, they still don't have a texture, but you know, we're only about 1.5 years into this game's development, so I'd say it's developing pretty quickly. There is one negative to the entire loot system, and that is the kind of amorphous list of components, and there's not a whole lot of differentiation between them. If you hover over each thing in the industry tab when you're not in the map, it will tell you what planet you find them on. I think it could use some better categorization, maybe tiers such as Tech 1, 2, and 3, possibly like types of salvage, or officer and factional stuff like there is in Eve. Like back in Dust, seeing that prototype suit icon was so unique, and you really felt the weight of the item, even if it wasn't necessarily expensive, just based on its category, what it could do. Eve kind of has that too with Tech 2, Tech 3, and factional modules. You really feel the weight of these things. Another unique for Vanguard is the connection that it has with Eve. And no one, as far as I can tell, I mean, I think it's been 10 years since Dust. No one else has done any kind of cross-universe type games that are vastly different in gameplay from each other. Like something like Eve and a shooter. Like, never heard of it. This is something that Vanguard is doing very unique from the rest of the industry. There is a link in Vanguard, and it's mainly in the form of rewards and in-game lore changes. It's not really necessarily a direct thing yet. There's the factional shifting thing, but it doesn't really affect the ground level people or really the Eve people that much. But this feature will improve, I think, and become something more impactful over time. Like, imagining the future is easy here. A squad of Vanguard could help secure a skyhook and gain exclusive access to a planet that they control, making the flow of goods go faster or slow across the cluster. Planetary Conquest was really the most interesting team thing you could do in Dust 514, and I hope they bring back some sort of Planetary Conquest, and I think they're hinting at it, which is cool, and I'm hoping to see this happen in the future. There is another sort of unique thing about this game, and that it's sort of like a sci-fi Tarkov. There aren't a whole lot of sci-fi games in this genre, so I think it's underserved, but it's good to see that there's something going on here. I would say that the fittings would be unique for suit modding, but they're not in the game yet, so I can't really comment on that. Hopefully they actually add suit fittings in this game. I'll just leave that tabbed for the future. But there are another couple of things that kind of stick out to me as improvements in this mode that are different from the previous tests, that there are more maps and more features, and that they're more varied. So yes, there's one new map, but some of the old maps are still there and they're shuffled around a bit. And it's really well designed for the type of gameplay. It makes it feel fresh every time, and that's a really good improvement. Yeah, the environment, it still jumps out at you as far as like it stuttering your movement. I don't know if that's an Unreal Engine thing, but Dust had issues with that too, so I'm sure they could modify the tolerances, but if history is a guide, yeah, they may not change that. It may not ever get fixed. I think that this game mode particularly has had a lot of work done in it, and for getting things built up, and every time there's a new update, it feels less and less like a tech demo, and it's starting to really kind of come into it, I think. It's just a lot of it is disconnected from any kind of like purpose, so it does feel like it's sort of hollow when you play it. Like there's not a whole lot of good goals to shoot for. Yes, you have missions, but it doesn't feel like doesn't really have the weight of ownership when you get these things. What's cool about the development of this game is that, again, like I mentioned before, it hasn't really been in development for very long, and they're really just making maps and mechanics. The guns, the suits, all that stuff is literally asset extraction from Dust, because it runs out of Unreal Engine 3, and they're just taking the assets and putting them in the new thing. So they don't really have to design a whole lot of new equipment or suits or items. They already have it. They can just put it right into the game. So it takes away any development time for design and allows them to really focus on making gameplay mechanics, and they can crank them out really fast. I think what really needs to be worked on here to cement the feeling of purpose in the game is adding corpse and allowing you to travel between areas like you are in Eve. Dust didn't have this feature complete until a good amount into the development of the game, because initially you had to put like a tag in front of your name to kind of say, I'm with this clan, I'm in this channel with these people. They had the Eve voice channel, so that you could sort of kind of do that already. This doesn't really have that, so it's hard to really group up with corpse outside of Eve. It's all internally an Eve thing, and I think that kind of kills it a little bit, but yeah, we'll see what happens when they do actually release corpse for the game. So yeah, I think the future's bright for this game, as long as it stays off the chopping block and people are still playing it. That's best we can hope for. I'm gonna still keep making content for Vanguard and keep supporting it. But if you are interested in playing some with me while there's still time left to play the playtest, I'll have my Discord link below. I also have plans for this channel. You can see my introduction video over here or over here, I don't know. And it's some of my plans for the channel as well there. I mainly do gaming reviews and commentary on the gaming community, but some of my plans are also going to be doing D&D like content with some of my campaigns that I run on Wednesdays. So stay tuned for that. I also have a partially complete book. I also want to make some shorts for that as well. It's about augmented reality and doing LARP with it. I was inspired by SAO. I made this a while ago, so if that sounds interesting to you, hit the sub button, and I'll post some of that at some point soon in the future. Keep your eyes open for it. I also have a Patreon for the channel and the GoFundMe. If you're interested in that, the links are below as well. The GoFundMe is for the train wreck of a financial situation I find myself in, and also the partial blindness issues that I've been having. Thanks in advance if you donate. Appreciate it. But thanks for watching, Wheatbag, and I'll see you in the next one.